So we're coming into the springtime. So I feel like there's new beginnings, new growth emerging from the snow of our consciousness. And as a result of that, what I was thinking was a lot of us, I think, put up with conditions and situations because we don't realize that we can cycle out of them. And I think probably one of the biggest errors I see in this particular type of work, especially in the craft at large, is the sense of sort of atheistic. It's weird. This sort of atheistic magic doesn't really work. It's all just sort of symbolic, and this is the cards you've been dealt, and you should deal with it. Get a reality check. And I see a lot of that in groups around. That it's not so much about the way I was raised back in the day. It was like you could really, the sky's the limit. You could change reality. And let's learn how to do it. And now there seems to be this sort of this weird little pall over the craft that's it's not really it doesn't really work or something. And what we've noticed, what I noticed, what most of us have noticed that have been around this, is you get what you expect. And if you think that way, then that's the way it's going to be. And my question to those people is, why are you doing it then? Why? What's the point? If it's is it a game? Is it just some place to go? Is it maybe it's some sort of self-discovery path, which is all fine, which I don't have any judgment on it one way or the other. But it's just not my experience of magic. My experience of magic is that it really does work. And it really works all the time if you know how to work it properly. And if you're not getting results, it's not that magic's not working, or that you don't deserve it, or that you have to put up with certain conditions. It's just that you have to rethink your methods and figure it out, because it should either work or it won't work. It's sort of like thinking that magic works sometimes but not all the time is like saying exercise works sometimes but not all the time, or electricity works sometimes but not all the time if it's done in the right way. I mean, obviously there can be problems, with electricity, like you had a power outage, but the principles, if they're followed correctly, always work. Things work the way they work. The math leads to B. Yeah. The laws of the universe are irrefutable. There's no votes. The gravity works all the time. You drop something, it falls to the floor, no matter who you are, what you've done, what your history is. If you do enough cardio and you reduce your calories, you're going to lose weight. If you study enough and work enough and practice enough, whether or not you're a great artist or not, you will learn how to play the piano. If you practice and you learn it, artistry is 98% hard work. Really, it's boring. It's boring, and the craft is the same way. I mean, the craft. It's not that it's boring, but it's not like it's not. Most of it is not inspiration. It's just it's very practical. It's very pragmatic. If you do this, this will happen. So I want to talk in terms of that tonight. I want to talk in terms of how to kind of help to streamline some things that may not be working. For you, if that's the case, and how to give you some ideas about how to have this spring season be a rebirth of success for you in regards to all of that. So I think just a real quick, let's just get on the same page. Part of the problem that people have with this stuff too, I think, is that when you start talking about God and the goddess and spirit and things like that, it can get really dicey because everybody's got their own religious upbringings, and a lot of people were abused with religion as kids, and so there's not really healthy understandings of the reality of spirit and the reality of deity. So let's just take all of the mystique out of it first, and let's just talk about God and goddess being pure principle, male and female principle, the Hermetic laws of gender. And we will talk about the goddess or the feminine principle as being the deep mind or the unconscious or the subconscious mind or the womb principle. And we will talk about the god as being the conscious mind or the decision-making principle, the masculine principle, or the seed. Okay? And if you start thinking in terms of deities, it's very tempting to think in terms of deities are separate from you. Okay? So what we're talking about are principles that are part of us, part of our way of, part of who we are, and at the same time a quote higher power, meaning that they are the same. They created us, we don't create them. Okay, so there is, when we're talking about God and goddess or divinity or spirit, we're talking about that which cannot be destroyed and that which is your progenitor, the thing that creates you. And so that's why it's easy to call it your father or your mother or your parents, but not in terms of an old deity concept where it's separate from who we are. It's also who you are. So a god, a woman doesn't give birth to a sphinx, right? So God doesn't give birth to an ungodly thing. So the same creative principle that creates you is you're of the same fabric. You are the same type of being, and therefore you have the same kind of creative abilities to create reality as that which creates the universe, and that's what magic is. And you don't have to be so-called quote religious to understand that or to tap into that. And in fact, sometimes religion can hamper it because it gives us a sense of separation, that there's some god or goddess outside of me that I have to sort of petition to get something. And that's not what we're talking about at all. It's very, very much who you are at your core and bigger than what you think you are. Okay, so with the god and goddess principles of mind, we're talking about the conscious mind or the seed principle, and the unconscious mind, the deep mind, or the womb principle. Together they come together and they create, and it happens all the time. And the results that they create in regards to you are the results in your life. That's what we're talking about. And to the extent which we feel separate from the process of that creation, we feel victimized by our lives. So it looks as though, oh, it's happening to me. Why is this happening to me? Why is this happening to me? When in reality, it's part of who we are. It's part of us. And again, people get very upset when we talk like this because it's not blame the victim mentality. We're not saying you created the reality on a conscious level, but you are definitely part of the reality, and so part of the creation of the reality. So if we can learn to take responsibility for what is already here, then we are in a position of power to tap into that creative principle to create what we do want. So one way that we create what we have is through our the stilling of our conscious mind. So there's two ways to do that. One is to go to sleep, and one is to use a magical trance or relaxation. So either way, as Eli would call it, lowers your mental shield. Okay, so at the easiest, everybody has this every night when they go to sleep. What they don't realize is what they take into sleep with them is what they're creating for themselves. So if you go to sleep with a bunch of worries, you're creating worries. If you go to sleep with anger, that's why they say don't let the sun set on your anger. It's because it's stupid, right? So what we have to learn how to do is to fall asleep to that which we want to create and wake up to that which we want to experience. I have an easy, the way I'm made up, everybody's got strengths and weaknesses. I can fall asleep to what I want, but sometimes I'll wake up in a bad mood. I'll wake up in a fearful mood. I'll wake up in an icky mood. I'm one of those I'm allergic to morning kind of people. So I have to notice that immediately. And the first thing I have to do is change that because I'm already hooked into, you've got about 2 hours when you wake up where you are already in a state of trance, no matter how much coffee you drink, so that you may as well take advantage of that time to start creating what you want. The way you create what you want, we talk about this in magick, 101A, is you have to relax your body and you have to see what you want. But it doesn't stop there because people can visualize till they're blue in the face, but if they don't believe that it's possible, if they don't have faith that it can happen, it won't happen. You don't get what you want, you get what you believe. You don't get what you want. If you could get what you want, then everybody would have what they want. But you don't get what you want. You get what you believe. And so you have to learn how to believe in what you want. And you learn how to believe in your own creative powers to be able to make it happen. Faith, imagination, will, and secrecy are the 4 cornerstones to the witch's pyramid, which, most people that understand how magic works understand that those things have to be active. But a lot of times it's like you learn about it in 101 class and then you forget that. It's like, no, you have to live that. You have to, faith, imagination, will, and secrecy. Faith is one of the harder ones, stumbling blocks for people, is because they don't know what to do. They don't know how to have that faith in themselves. And so what happens is we are burdened with problems. We are burdened with problems, and because we are burdened with problems, and that becomes our what we believe in, because it's there all the time for us, we don't know how to get out of it. We don't know how to have faith that we can have something else. And we don't understand. We can intellectualize, I can see how I'm creating this for myself, but I don't understand on a visceral level how to move into the faith that is necessary to create a powerful magical spell, because I'm so burdened with these powers, with these problems. So when you're burdened, and everybody's got burdens that they carry around with them, but it's up to us to learn how to unburden ourselves, because every time you have a burden, you are planting the seed that the God is taking the burden. It's okay. Let's backtrack before I go into that. When you go to sleep or when you're going into a magical trance, it is the great rite. That God, male consciousness, is moving down and having sex with the goddess, and they are creating a baby, and that baby is your experiences. Every single night that happens, and every time you go into a meditative experience, you are going into the great rite. So whatever you're taking into that, all of your beliefs are getting fertilized, basically, so that you get more and more and more of it, which sounds wonderful until you realize, but I don't want my beliefs to get fertilized. What do? I want out of this. And so this is when having a tool is very helpful, so that you can break the cycle of bringing your problems into the great rite and having them create. So one of the things that you can do is learn how to unburden yourself. Unburden yourself. And the way you unburden yourself, well, there's many ways to do it, but the fastest and easiest way to do that is through the medicine or the chemical of perfect love. Perfect love is a chemical that dissolves everything that is unlike itself. And so perfect love is something that we were made out of, that we are created out of, and it exists beyond our problems. It exists beyond anything that it exists on that is perfection. It is the perfection that we're all striving toward. So it already exists within us because it's the substance out of which we were created. So what you can learn how to do is recognize this perfect love as being something that can handle your problems for you. That you can actually unburden yourself within the perfect love. You can call it whatever you want. You can call it the goddess, you can call it perfect love, you can call it divine love, you can call it Holy Spirit, you can call it Great Spirit, you can call it God, you can call it whatever works for you, whatever gets you into the feeling of like, yes, there is a power that is greater than I am, that is perfect love, that has the ability to transcend all of my problems. And what you can learn how to do is call upon that when you're going to sleep, call upon that during the day when you're feeling burdened, call upon that when you're going into your meditation, and say, and I like perfect love because it's not too woo-woo. I mean, it's not, you don't have to like remember the pantheon of perfect love and all of that stuff. You can just call upon that divine presence of perfect love and say, I unburden myself. I unburden myself, and a perfect love dissolves everything that is unlike itself and sets me free in this moment. And I just say that over and over again as I'm going to sleep. And I remember the first time I recognized, this was years ago, I learned of this technique of unburdening yourself and giving all of your problems over to a higher power. And I remember when I heard of that, I thought, well, that sounds very sort of trite. It sounds very sort of irresponsible. It sounds very silly, that you would give over your problems to some imaginary being that's going to take them away from you. And so I decided, I'm going to hang on to my problems because that sounds too stupid. And so I remember it took me a long time, and this is like, I'm not an alcoholic or anything like that, but I think it's a very similar thing when an alcoholic hits bottom, they're like, okay, I'll try anything. And that's when they get on their knees, so to speak. And I remember getting into some situation where I was just like, well, there's no way out. I don't know what else to do. So I'm going to try this. I'm going to unburden myself. And I remember thinking, I don't like these terms, I don't like God, I don't like all that stuff, so I'm just going to call it perfect love, because that makes more sense to me, or infinite intelligence, something like that. I called it something that made more sense to me. And I said, okay, there's a part of me that is more infinite than my problems, there's a part of me that is more infinite than my personality, and I'm invoking that part of me, and I'm giving my problems, I'm unburdening myself to this force, and I'm going free. And I remember getting a sense of momentary peace. Just like, but then I'm like, okay, but that's being irresponsible. I got to get my problems back. And it took me a while to literally unburden myself. When I felt like I was really doing it, because I remember thinking it's more responsible for me to worry. It's more responsible for me to figure it out. Mm-hmm. It's more responsible for me to be in charge. It's more, because it makes sense. I mean,
you're possessive of your problems.
Well, I mean, I didn't want to be stupid. I'm like, wait, God's going to handle it? I mean, that sounded just very irresponsible. It sounded very born again Christian or something, and like, but. It was until I understand the magical implications of it, the scientific implications of it, that I understood that it was something worth trying. Well, I got to a point where I was able to listen to my intuitive voice. I mean, we call it mental teacher. I was at a point where I was having conversations, viscerally with my own inspirational force, what we call our mental teacher or guide or whatever. And I remember hearing the encouragement to just give it a try doing this, and so I did, and I remember in meditation getting this idea that actually it's more responsible for you to do this than to try to take care of the problems, because look how well that's been working for you, So I did, and my worst fears were sort of realized for 3 days in that I didn't give a care about my problems. I literally didn't do anything. I was completely irresponsible for like 3 days. I didn't call people. I didn't go to work. I didn't,
Right.
I just literally gave everything over. And for 3 days, I was very rested. And what I recognized was when I came out of that sort of coma, it wasn't that I was like waiting for some supernatural power to come in and be my fairy godmother on the physical level. It was that I was able to, I noticed that I started making more money. I got more business. I felt better. I was nicer to be around. And a lot of the stuff that I didn't do very well, I was able to hire people to help me do that stuff because I didn't know how to do it. And it was as though my problems got wiped out. And it was very mystical. It was very easy. It was very safe, and it was extremely responsible. Now, if somebody was like looking at me, they would think, oh, well, he finally got off his ass and got some stuff done. But that was not my experience of it at all. Because to me, before I unburdened myself, I thought I was really fixing it. And that's when I didn't look probably to the onlooker like I was very responsible. Once I unburdened myself and let infinite love take over for me, it all sort of just kind of cleared up in a very easy sort of way. And I was able to get back doing what I was good at, making some decent money, and hiring people to help me do the stuff that I couldn't do so well. You know?
Well, you were in a relaxed place. You could see better than when you were tense and stressed
Absolutely.
about trying to solve it.
Absolutely. And on one hand, it was very pragmatic. On another hand, there was very mystical things that would happen. Just like synchronistic kind of things that would happen that I would be like, well, this is really cool, And I noticed that I was able to start focusing on my desires better because I was not so plagued with how am I going to get out of these problems all the time. Because what I noticed was before I was unburdening myself, that once I got this problem sort of handled, something else would fill up that hole, and then something else would fill up that hole, and I was going from problem to problem to problem to problem to problem, and not the good kind of problems where you learn your lessons and stuff like that, the kind of problems that just make you want to stop being in the world. You know what I mean? Not that I was suicidal, but it was just like, ugh, I hate this life, So that, I feel, is one of the things that people miss out on when they have too much taking the reins over in their magic, because they don't understand that until they can unburden themselves from these problems that are plaguing them, that they are really creating for themselves, that they're not in a place where they can actually create anything. You know what I'm saying? So try that. Try taking some time out, like as you're going to sleep or as you're going into your meditation, or even during the day when something is just like, or you're worrying about something. Give it over to that higher part of your mind that knows how to handle it. It's not a separate thing. You're not giving it over to some external deity. You're giving it over to the part of your consciousness that's smart enough to handle it, rather than the you that is causing some issues. Okay? So that's the first thing, is unburden yourself. You don't have to do as many banishings, I've noticed too. Not that banishings are bad. I mean, I do them, but you just don't have to do so many banishings because there's not so much to banish, because it's not your responsibility anymore. All you're responsible for is, well, what do I want now that I'm not, that I'm not upset all the time. So that's the first thing, is unburden yourself. And then what you want to do is you want to start taking time out every day, once or twice a day, to get that mental shield down while you're awake. Relaxation. And try it, what we say is you want to relax and visualize what you want. Try another tool. Because a lot of times what happens is people try to visualize what they want, and it kind of gets intense. Because they're like, I want the I want the I want my goal, I want my goal, I want my goal. Instead, find out, go ahead and we want you to have goals, definitely. But look at the most important goal, and instead of saying, I want it exactly like this, ask yourself what this represents to you. I want a new car. What does the car represent? What are the spiritual qualities of that car? What is it going to give you? Is it going to give you a sense of freedom? Is it going to give you a sense of luxury? Is it going to give you a sense of peace? Is it going to give you, what is it going to give you? And you want to go into your relaxation with the feeling of that thing happened. That thing's already happened. So you don't have to see yourself. I mean, there's nothing wrong with seeing yourself. I mean, absolutely. But you don't want to do that with divorced from the feeling of having already achieved it. What is the essence of that thing? So, if you're feeling like I want a new job, it's just like, okay, well then we say, well, what do you want? What kind of job do you want? What are the qualities that you want in a boss? What are the qualities you want? What kind of pay do you want? All that sort of stuff. So you go through all that, but then where people forget to go to is the most important part. Is like, what is it going to make you feel like? What is the essence of that job going to be? And if you go into your meditational periods, your magical trance, I mean, I like that better than meditation because meditation sounds very passive. But your magical trance, where you're relaxing your body, you're almost going into a state like sleep, but without actually going to sleep, feeling what it is that you're going to have. You open the door for the form to come to you in so many more ways than if you were casting this one particular vision on. You're really limiting yourself sometimes if you're so focused on your visualization and you're not thinking in terms of, well, what's it going to bring me? Why do I want this thing? And what's that going to feel like? And then when you go to sleep at night, you want to do your best to go to sleep feeling that way. You want to go to sleep feeling the feeling that your goal has already been accomplished.
Not again.
We don't do that.
After your eyes.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, I mean, you hear people talk about that, about how you need feelings, but the emotional body is sort of like the gasoline in the car. And if your tank is empty, it's like you're just like a kid sitting in the car without turning it on, pretending like they're driving. And that's what a lot of visualization is. But if you're feeling it, then what you notice is that sometimes you don't necessarily visualize, but you get visions of inspirations and things of what you should do. And it's almost like, it's just like, oh, I got to get out of this meditation because I want to do this thing that I was told to do, So really, those are my tools for the night. Really, that's it. Is unburden yourself first. You got to get unburdened, and the fastest way to do that is to give your burdens over to perfect love. Because remember, think of perfect love as an acid that only dissolves negativity. Or there's a new laser that they have for people that have damaged vocal folds, and the laser only seeks out the damaged tissue. It completely gives leaves the rest of the tissue uninvolved. So that's kind of what this force that we're talking about with perfect love. It's not going to hurt you. It's not gonna blast open things that would be negative for you. It's just all it's going to do is get rid of the problems, because the problems are there for you to learn on one hand, but if you're not learning the lessons, then the problems are just like a cancer. They're just eating away at you. That's not good. That's not good at all. You can learn that. We can learn how to learn those lessons through joy rather than struggle and pain. And if we do that, we just have to remind ourselves. And the hard part for a lot of people at first is to catch yourself immediately when you get the emotional pang of like worrying about something that's coming up, regretting something that you did, worrying about how am I going to do that? How's this going to happen? How's this going to happen? And as soon as that happens, you have to learn how to just invoke that presence of infinite love and literally say, I'm giving this to you to take care of right now, because I don't know what to do with this. And if you learn how to discipline yourself to do that, you learn that you're being more responsible, not less responsible. Because if you were so smart, you wouldn't be in the mess to begin with. You know what I mean? So there's that. So unburden ourselves, and then watch how you go to sleep, and watch how you wake up. Because those are the times that you can use to your benefit to really start to get what you want. Because those are the times when the great rite is happening. So think of Mordred in the Arthurian legends.
Yeah.
It was not a very good baby. It was because it was a very bad. It was a very bad consummation, right? That was the lesson was watch who you're fucking. You know, because something's going to happen, and that's what happens every time we go into sleep with the wrong thoughts. Is we are conceiving a Mordred, and watch how you're daydreaming too, because when you're kind of doing this, and you start ruminating over your problems and getting all churning, you're creating a Mordred, and you want to create an Arthur. Or somebody else, or whatever your image is, right? Because look at Arthur. Arthur's, according to the legend, he's still alive. Right. He's just hanging out, waiting to come back. And it's similar to the Jesus myth and all of that. These stories are just symbols for our, very wise people, for us to remind ourselves how the mind works, and the fact that that's the problem with Christianity and a lot of these patriarchal religions is they got rid of the mother principle, so people don't even realize.
Well, it was all about control.
Yeah,
Pretty much.
it was. Hell was definitely a big crowd controller too, but hell is a real place, and it's called daily life when you let your mind be undisciplined.
Yeah.
Right? But the good news is that it's not an eternity. It's just a matter of and you can use this you can time travel with this. You can go back in time and you can say, play with it. Nobody's like reading your mind. Do what you want with it. Play with it. Get outrageous. I'm going back into time, and I'm unburdening myself from all times in my past that I planted the seed of whatever poverty. I'm gonna go back in time, and I'm gonna let that power go and clean that up. And I'm gonna if Mordred dies, that's fine. But Mordred might change form and become something better. Who knows? That's the beauty of this. Is it's sort of like it's a mystery. You don't know how it's going to manifest, but it's going to be good. So if you can, to recap, I'm sorry, to watch how you're going into sleep, to watch how you're waking up, and then to take some time out through the day and just do it. You know what's a really cool idea is to take your iPhone or something that has a stopwatch on it and just set it for 1 minute. 1 minute, and you're gonna say like, okay, I'm gonna do a 1 minute spell, and I'm just gonna, as soon as I hit 1 minute, I'm just gonna allow perfect love. Just gonna see nothing but that light of perfect love shining through me. I'm gonna unburden myself completely, and that's it. I'm just gonna be completely 100% innocent and free from this problem for 1 minute. Just 1 minute, and I can go back to my problem later. And you just relax and you do that, and you practice that presence maybe 4 times a day, and you say, okay, am I worth 4 minutes out of my day?
Right, if you can plank 4 times a minute each, you can probably meditate.
Exactly, but it's I call it the power of something. A minute 4 times a day, you're going to be a lot farther ahead than saying, well, until I can meditate for 30 minutes at a time, I'm just not going to bother. And then so you're just not getting anywhere. So the 4 minutes a day, great. 2 minutes a day. Maybe you could do 2 minutes a day. Start with one, I don't care. But just do it every day, So morning, night as you go to sleep, and then carve out some time through the day and just tune back in to the power. And once you feel like you're able to let go of your problems, then you're in a place where you can start casting real spell work and magic to say, okay, now I want this, I want that, I want this.
Because then you're really relaxed. You're not going to have that tension driving your spell that's
Yes.
just going to negate it anyway.
Yeah, or maybe give you more.
Mordred.
Yeah, more Mordreds. It's like it's like the zombie apocalypse is what we are creating. People are like, oh, what would you do if there was a zombie apocalypse? I'm like, well, look at your life. This is the zombie apocalypse. It's been the zombie apocalypse since the beginning of time. So, and that's pretty much it. That's pretty much all I have to say.
Of everybody at work and stuff as being zombies going through the day.
It's true, isn't it? And that's not. And some people take these things to such extremes. They're just like, oh, you should never watch movies. You should never watch TV. It's just like, no, watch movies, watch TV. Go and do stuff that you want to do, eat meat, whatever you want to do. I don't care about any of that. Just watch how you're going to sleep, watch how you're waking up, and take a few minutes out of every day to take care of your spiritual hygiene. And then we'll talk about spell work later, because you won't need as much of it anyway, because all of this will just start. Because you already know what you want. You already know what you want, and if you can get into the feeling of what you want, you don't have to worry about. And it's not to say that you don't need to do that it's not that there's not a place for all of the other stuff, all the accoutrement, the planetary hours and the candles and the spell and all that. It's fine. There's nothing. I love all that stuff, but it's also good to take a break from all of that and just be more advanced about yourself and just intend what you want and let it be and let it manifest. And the way to do that is to get into those feelings. Get right to get right to the essence of it. And if you're not there yet, if you're too burdened with problems, then that's fine. Go back to that part of it. And there's really two sides of one coin. And that's what we say is the waxing moon versus the waning moon. You banish and then you invoke. You banish and then you invoke. Well, we can think of it in terms of I'm going to unburden, I'm going to create. I'm going to unburden, I'm going to create. They're the same kind of thing.
Till the soil plant.
Yes.
Till the soil.
Till the soil plant. Weed plant. Weed plant. Yeah. Although some farmers say, if your crops are strong enough, you don't have to worry about the weeds. Some farmers say if your crops are strong enough, you don't have to worry about the weeds. They'll take care of the weeds. The wheat will take care of it for you.
I want to thank you for talking about it being the responsible thing to do to unburden yourself. With people in my life, responsibility means the
Worry.
other direction where, you're supposed to analyze it to death and go after it and da-da-da-da.
Right.
And create all that tension. And
right.
I know that doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
And I don't go around telling other people
what to do.
You should be doing it like I do.
Right.
But I still have to hear about it, and I know, because it's family, they're saying, you're not being responsible,
right.
We're worried about you.
Right.
It's like, well,
Yeah.
you know how to go.
Yeah, I'm a big girl. I can take care of myself.
Right.
Yeah.
Even I don't know if it was Viktor Frankl, but an early counseling theorist said that when you start focusing on the why, you get taken away from the what.
Yeah.
So he didn't like analysis and Freudian analysis.
It's distracting. It's a distraction.
It was all this why, but he was like, but now we've gone away from the what, and you're just lost in why land. Come back to the
And with
what.
magic, it's people get lost in the how.
Right.
Well, I want this, but how is it going to? I was on one of my teleclasses, and I had just said, don't worry about how, just figure out what you want. Just figure out what you want, and don't worry about how it's going to manifest. Your job right now is what do you want? Mm-hmm. And she said, yeah, but how is it going to manifest? I'm like, I know, it's very addictive. It's very addictive. It's like she wouldn't even hear that. She was deaf to that part of it. And, the how will come to you later. Or maybe, so the thing about it, though, is sometimes it happens, a lot of times it happens in ways that I could have never dreamed up. I would never have put these people together, this situation together. It just happened in a way that I would have never been able to come up with on my own. And if I was so focused on, no, it needs to be through this channel, it needs to be through this timeline, this blah, 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 I would have been very disappointed with the results. Because usually what happens when I let go of all that stuff is when it comes in a way that I couldn't have figured out, and in a form that was much stronger than my own limited ideas of what I wanted.
It comes through perfectly.
It really comes through
In
perfectly.
a way that you couldn't even imagine.
You couldn't have. Just like you can't create a flower, but you can plant a seed.
Right.
You know? And people forget there's a difference. You know, you're a farmer, yeah, you can plant the seed. You can be a very good farmer, but you can't make that flower. You can't make those vegetables. And the same thing with our magic. We can plant the seeds, we can choose the crops that we want, all of that stuff, but we can't make it happen.
Yeah.
And that's a burden we're not supposed to carry anyway.
And sometimes it doesn't happen.
And sometimes it doesn't happen,
It's
but
not just out of your control.
but only because there's something better. It's always because there's something better. And if you don't believe that, then you need to rethink it, because you're not supposed to be miserable. You're not supposed to be dissatisfied. You're supposed to have what you want in life. And the other thing too is sometimes when we do magic, we get something that looks like really kind of, is that all there is? And we don't realize that that's just the shoots coming out of the ground. That's not the tree, or that's the little twigs and sign of land, but it's not the land, you know. And so I'm very adamant about, you know, I want it this way or better. And I'm okay with better. But if it's something that's disappointing, then I'm like, then this is not it. This is not it. And I'm very I get very adamant with spirit that it's just like, okay, we're not there yet. And it's not usually, it's never spirit's fault. It's my fault, because I've somehow limited myself. I've somehow made a mistake in the way I'm doing it. Yeah.
I'd just say something really fast. You know, the main goals that I've worked on in my life, when I know that I'm headed in the right direction through my magical work, you know, not focusing on the how, but like it's from a visceral level. It's not from mental.
No.
It's not from mental. And when it's feel like like my goals are being cooked.
Yes.
And when that happens, it's like, I mean, great things have happened to me, you know, without me forcing them to happen.
Right.
I just put the right things in the universe, and
Right.
everything just fell into place without me forcing it to
Right.
happen. So I don't know if that makes
Well,
sense.
yeah, absolutely. Because I mean, just like anybody that's had a baby, you know, you're on oven duty. I mean, it's not your baby. I mean, you didn't you didn't create that baby. You know, it's happening through you. It's not. It's, I mean, and what you get isn't necessarily.
You thought you were gonna get.
No, I mean, it's their own person, and you can do your best to raise them and give them the right environment, but they're going to be who they're going to be.
Right.
And the same thing goes with a lot of our results. It's just like, whoa, okay, this is not quite what I was expecting, but it's pretty cool, you know. But you can't control a lot of this stuff, and the control is a lot of that burden that we're talking about. I'm like, oh yeah, but I need to blah 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 blah. Well, no, you don't need to do anything except for unburden yourself.
It's
Right.
so freaking suffocating, and I find myself when my burdens build up, and I notice this too, if I start to articulate a lot of my burdens to people, like
Yes.
I want the list of what's going on, what's wrong, and,
Yes.
and then sometimes I'll say, I don't want to give a voice to it.
Right.
And then sometimes I'll start listing it, and then I feel suffocated, and my anxiety's crazy, and I have the electric eels in my stomach, and then I feel like I don't want to do shit.
Right.
And then I don't do shit, and suddenly I feel better.
You feel better. Yeah.
And so, like, the idea of meeting that, like, prophylactically by unburdening myself on a regular basis,
Yes.
rather than allowing it to come up to this big crescendo
Right.
of, like, I'm not breathing normally.
Right.
It seems like, oh my gosh, to
You're
be able
not
to feel that relaxed.
You're not supposed to have those burdens. You're not meant to carry those
I
burdens.
don't want them.
They're not yours to carry.
I don't know. I said I don't want them.
Yeah.
And that's what I have to remind myself is when I start feeling like, and then I start feeling guilty for creating this reality for myself, and then it just compounds and compounds. I have to remember this is not my business. This is infinite love has to take over with this because this is not my job. I'm really bad at this, and me trying to fix those problems for myself would be like me trying to rewire the electricity in my house. I don't know how. I'm not qualified. I couldn't.
It would be irresponsible.
It would be irresponsible. It would be irresponsible. I would electrocute myself, and I would burn down the house. I would get in trouble. Yeah, I mean, but the same thing. But for some reason, I think, oh, I can handle these problems because they're mine. No, they're not mine. They are not my problems. They are. This is my lesson. My lesson is how do I completely let go of these problems? How do I completely let go of my feeling responsible for something that is not my responsibility? And the way I do it is I invoke the power of perfect love, and I recognize it as like an elixir, or as like a chemical. It's like a chemical that that it's like, how like the enzymes will like eat all the stains out of the rug, but they won't hurt the rug. It's kind of like that. It's kind of like nature's miracle. Where it gets the pee out, but it doesn't get the rug out. So it's sort of like that. It's like the perfect love, completely. And if I still feel worried, then I know I didn't get. Then I know I'm holding on to something that's not mine. Because if it feels wrong, it's not mine. Get rid of it. Let it go. Let it go. And it really is opposite, like what you were saying, of what people think that they're supposed to do.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh no, I need to worry. I'm like, how's that working for you? Is that working out so well? Because I know for me, when I don't do that, it's like magic. Things just like open up, and I get business, and I get energy, and I get inspired, and I want to do things, and I work out, and I do all this stuff that I've always wanted to do. Whereas if I'm not doing that, nobody wants to. It's like the phone won't ring. Nothing works for me. So I mean, like, which one is responsible? Yeah. And like somebody was like, well, you have to learn how to do accounting. I'm like, no, you don't. There's people that can do that for you. You
Burden my mind with that.
No, you don't have to do anything. You don't have to clean your own house. If you don't want to, unless you want to, if you like it. But if you don't want to clean your own house, you hire people for that. There's people that want it.
Your own house, then if something gets broken, you're responsible.
That's true. I mean, it's totally up to you how you want to do it. You can do what you want to do, but the bottom line is if there's knots in your stomach, then you're carrying something that's not yours to carry. And that's a hard lesson for a lot of people to learn, because we don't feel safe letting go.
Yeah.
We don't feel like it's
We feel like we should be able to handle anything.
So true.
But just remind yourself then, why don't you go ahead and rewire your house? Because that's how qualified you are to handle that. Why don't you replumb it? Replumb your house. Why don't you do that? Why don't you engineer a new bridge? Because that's how qualified we are.
How to clean my upstairs windows.
Yeah. I can barely fill up my gas tank. So I'm okay with not trying to do things in the metaphysical realm that I'm not qualified to do. Any more questions?
I feel empowered.
Do you? Oh, good.
I do.
Well, let's get to it then. All right, we'll take a couple minutes and take a few breaths. We see ourselves on top of the mountain in the center of the grove, the bonfire blazing forth. We recognize this light is the light of perfect love, and it is burning away everything that is unlike itself and leaving all that is organic to us pristine. And we thank you for this time we have spent together, dear Spirit. And until we meet again, together we say, blessed be.
Blessed.